President Biden reinstates the Violence Against Women Act. President Biden reinstated the Violence Against Women Act, or VAWA, on March 15, 2022. It passed with 244 votes in the House of Representatives and 65 votes in Senate. 172 House Republicans voted no on the bill, while 29 broke party lines to vote yes on the bill. Some Republicans, along with the National Rifle Association, or the NRA, took issue with the firearm regulations in the bill. One of the firearms regulations they were against was the boyfriend loophole, a portion of the bill that would stop a partner, regardless of intimate relationship status, for example, a boyfriend, from purchasing a firearm if they were convicted of abuse or stalking, according to Newsweek and USA Today. Some Republican Congress members, along with the NRA, are against the boyfriend loophole part of the new bill because, according to them, it encroaches on gun rights and is, quote, too broad and ripe for abuse. Democrat Senator Amy Klobuchar and House of Representatives members Democrat Debbie Dingell and Republican Brian Fitzpatrick initially proposed a bill in 2013 to close the boyfriend loophole. VAWA currently has an almost identical provision in place that stops those who are convicted of domestic violence or abuse from getting a gun if they, quote, were married to, lived with, or had a child with the abuse survivor, end quote, per Newsweek. According to research and statistics, there's a higher chance of an abuser turning into a murderer if they can obtain a firearm. The Violence Policy Center cited statistics from a 2017 annual report from the Bureau of Justice that showed that almost 3 women are murdered every day in the U.S. by current or previous romantic partners, NBC News reported. The highlighted features of the Violence Against Women Act can be found on the official White House website titled, Fact Sheet. Biden-Harris administration celebrates the 29th anniversary of the Violence Against Women Act, posted September 2023. Some of the highlights are posted in the video and in the description box for this video. Brief history of the Violence Against Women Act. The Violence Against Women Act was drafted in 1990 by then Democrat Senator Joe Biden, where he presented a preliminary proposal to Congress to bring national attention to violence against women. It was also co-written by Democrat House Representative Louise Slaughter of New York and supported by Republican Senator Orrin G. Hatch of Utah. Biden and his team worked closely with advocacy groups, counsel and staff to the Senate Judiciary Committee, and organizations like NOW Legal and Defense and Education Fund. After 4 years of negotiations and opposition, it was introduced by Democrat House Representative Jack Brooks of Texas in 1994 to Congress. It passed in the House of Representatives with 266 votes and the Senate with 68 votes, and President Bill Clinton signed it into law in 1994. The following year, in 1995, however, House Republicans tried to cut funding to the act, per the Washington Post and Wikipedia. According to Legal Momentum, an organization that advocates for women's rights, one of the main reasons why it took 4 years to pass this bill was because of a, quote, controversial provision, a private civil rights remedy, end quote. Legal Momentum further explained that the civil rights provision where the victim could bring a lawsuit against their attacker was not well received by some judicial organizations and legislators. There were concerns that the civil rights provision in the bill could open a Pandora box in which the federal courts would be inundated with family disputes that should not be brought in front of federal judges. Eventually, the legislation was slightly altered to address the concerns of judges and legislators, and the civil rights remedy remained in the bill for several years, according to Legal Momentum. In the year 2000, in the case of United States versus Morrison, the U.S. Supreme Court, with a 5-4 majority, overturned the civil rights remedy provision that allowed women to bring lawsuits against their attackers in federal courts because Congress had, quote, overstepped its authority under the Constitution's Commerce Clause, because the statute isn't relevant to interstate commerce and the 14th Amendment, end quote, per Time magazine. The Violence Against Women Act lapsed in Congress in February 2019 because Democrats and Republicans couldn't come to agreement on some of the terms in the bill, and the government shutdown exacerbated the lapse. In 2019, it passed in Democrat-controlled House of Representatives, but failed in the Republican-controlled Senate. When Democrats won the Senate majority in January 2021, due to runoff elections in Georgia and California, the bill now had a possibility of being resurrected. Before President Clinton signed this bill into law in 1994, domestic abusers were able to evade prosecution by crossing state lines because law enforcement were not obligated to recognize or acknowledge protection orders from other states. And unfortunately, police officers were usually deterred from getting involved in domestic abuse situations. Time magazine pointed out a lot of credit has gone to VAWA for curbing the rate of domestic violence in the United States. Per data from the U.S. Department of Justice and reported by Time magazine, the quote, overall rate of intimate partner violence dropped 64% from 1993 to 2010, end quote. In her interview with Time magazine, Victoria Norse, a constitutional law professor from Georgetown University who worked on the first signed VAWA bill in 1994, emphasized the role Biden's empathy played in getting the Violence Against Women Act passed. She further elaborated, quote, he's criticized for his emotion and his empathy, but it also means he has grit. When it gets in that he's got to do something, he's not taking no for an answer, Norse says. That bill could only have been passed because of Joe Biden, end quote. This concludes our video. If you have managed to watch it until the end, we thank you. If this video has been helpful to you, liking and sharing this video and subscribing to our channel would mean a lot to us. What that does for us is it gives us an indication that we are building an audience and that we are creating helpful content for our viewers.